Hey guys, this is Raph, and welcome to my office space. Hopefully I didn't make you busy there. So a bit of a forward. This video is going to have a bit of a feel of raw and uncutness to it, because it's not really going to be a video where I'm going to be talking about a particular subject matter that I wanted to share with you guys. This is basically just to answer a question by ns.fishtanks. He asks on a question slash story post that I posted yesterday, why do tanks without CO2 have lesser algae problems than tanks with CO2? My preliminary answer that I gave him is that there are several different types of algae and several different reasons why algae forms. Increased algae growth happens when you have an imbalance between light, nutrients, and CO2. That would be my preliminary answer. But each algae situation can be very different from others. Possible reason is if someone has CO2, maybe they're leaving their light longer as well to maybe promote faster plant growth. Sorry, I have to go through my answer here. When I answered this, it was late last night because I was gaming, so I can't remember most of what I said, unfortunately. And then I continue on saying I leave mine for 12 hours. It is a possibility that the light spectrum that one might be using in their tank may not be a full light spectrum. So the plants that you have in your tank may not be fully utilizing the nutrients in the water. If you have a lot of free floating nutrients in the water, then that can cause an algae bloom spike. So I wanted to give a more detailed answer. Well, not really a detailed answer, but I wanted to share my solution when I experienced that kind of a problem. So the first solution that I use is bristlenose plecos and Siamese algae eaters. In my tank right now, it's a 30-gallon tank. I have one Siamese algae eater, and I have two bristlenose plecos. That core cleaning crew is usually enough to keep the algae at bay. Now, in the event that the algae grows a bit more out of control, I'm gonna switch the camera angles here. I have this, rusty razor blade, kind of scary looking, but I'm pretty careful when I'm using that. I basically just physically remove any algae on the glass that the algae eaters can't get. That usually solves the problem as well. Or I would decrease the light duration in my tank. I normally run my light for about 12 hours. It's a bit excessive compared to what other people on YouTube are saying that they should be leaving their light on, but for me, I love the kind of jungle look of the tank, so that's the reason why I leave it on for much longer. I like it when the plants grow tall. Now, in the event that it still doesn't work, light reduction, physically removing the algae is not solving the problem, then we get to the reason why I'm creating this video right now. I use hydrogen peroxide to treat my tank. Now I'm going to switch the view here. Okay, so this is what I use. You got to remember to get the 3%. I'm pretty sure it doesn't really become available for any other percentages, but that's the percentage that I get. part of the reason why I did this video is because I wanted to make sure that it's clear that I am using real hydrogen peroxide and it's not just water. Because one test that you can do if the hydrogen peroxide is still good is if you put some in your sink and it bubbles like that. Hopefully it's very clear here how it's bubbling. Then that means that it's still a valid hydrogen peroxide. It's still working. I think I've used up a good amount of this. Okay, so this is something that I have figured out for my own tank. The disclaimer that I'm going to use here is that you need to make sure that if you're going to use this method, you do a lot of research for this method. Actually, sorry, you're going to see how messy my table is. Okay. I'm going to quickly refer to my notes here. Yeah, I'm a bit of a... here we go. Okay, so initially, what I used was 10 milliliters per 15 gallons at 3% hydrogen peroxide. Now, I noticed that it wasn't really working that well. So what I ended up doing was I increased it by a lot. Actually, use 75 mils per 30 gallons. I usually pour it by where the filter is. And this is what I use as a last ditch effort method to help control my algae. I'm going to turn off the light and then we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, so if you look at the tank right now, it's very bright green and you don't see a lot of algae. Well, if we zoom in here, you can see that there's remnants of BBA, that's blackbeard algae, and there's a little bit of some kind of maybe green spot algae here and there. But the thing is though, and you can see some of it on that leaf there. But when you look at most of the tank here, you don't see insane amounts of algae. Just some on the rocks here and there. But my Siamese algae eater is able to keep the blackbeard algae in check. And then when I do get some green spot algae, then that's when that rusty razor blade is for. Now, you're not seeing it yet here, but in a few minutes the hydrogen peroxide will kick in and the plants will start pearling more. Initially, oh, here we go. Now it's beginning to pearl. Because I know that there are 2 bottles of hydrogen peroxide here, but This one is still sealed. Oh, yeah. Shit. This is the one that I used. So now we're seeing a little bit of pearling here. That's just because since the water is now oxygen rich, the plants are releasing the oxygen that it has in its system because now there's a little bit too much oxygen. It's not a bad thing. This is something that I've been doing for a few years now. It's just it's something that you don't really want to use a lot because you could accidentally nuke your tank. When I was learning this method of algae control, I miscalculated and I ended up nuking my tank. The plants were fine, but the fish, yeah, they did not make it. So in this situation here, 75 mils of hydrogen peroxide for a 30-gallon tank is my last-ditch effort to really bring down algae. It controls hair algae, BBA, the worst kind, brown algae, diatom algae. I've never had blue-green algae. If I remember correctly, that's not actual algae. That is cyanobacteria. I've never had that, luckily enough. But this is my algae control method. Starting off with bristlenose plecos and Siamese algae eater. If that's not enough, you just have to physically remove any algae. And then if that's still not enough, hydrogen peroxide. I haven't been in a situation where hydrogen peroxide is not enough. That's always been working in situations where I use too much of my DIY liquid fertilizer. A friend of mine, she calls it Frankenstein juice because I basically just Frankenstein that out of nothing. And see how the plants are now pearling. That's not because of my CO2. The bubble counter is not bubbling. That's just the hydrogen peroxide. And there's some bubbling here that I saw as well. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so hopefully this answers some questions with regards to algae control. Now, again, I would caution you that if you're going to use this method, you are very, very thorough in your research of it and that you're very careful. You need to make sure that you start off with very low dose. This is the formula that I found on the internet, 10 mils per 15 gallons. If you're feeling uncertain about it, maybe lower it. Maybe use 5 mils per 15 gallons, maybe even lower. Just make sure that you are testing it out on maybe a quarantine tank first, just to make sure that the inhabitants aren't dying. Notice with my fish here is that they're just going about their business. If anything, they're more awake. They're not darting around, freaking out, all stressed. They're just chilling there. Okay, so this is my long form kind of answer to ns.fishtank's question. This is what I do when I have uncontrollable algae. Hopefully he won't get into a situation where he needs to do more research because hydrogen peroxide is not working. Hopefully it stops there if he really has to go that far. But hopefully this was enlightening. My name is Raph, and again, welcome to my office space. If you have any questions, please send me a message. Have a good day.